There's like an 8-foot person beside it, and another one's inside, and it has big eyes and looking at us, and it's still there.
Okay, where is this on your property?
In my backyard. I swear to God, this is not a joke. This is actually, we're terrified of it.
So there's two people or two subjects that are in your backyard?
Correct, and they're very large. They're like 8 foot, 9 feet, 10 foot. I don't know. They look like aliens to us. Big eyes. They have big eyes, like I can't explain it, and big mouth. They're shiny eyes, and they're not human. They're 100%. They're not human.
Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. We're doing another living room episode today. I'm sitting here on my sofa, so obviously that's what it is. And today we're going to talk about how the government, the secret control group, the debunkers, as well as some people within the UFO community, are caught between a rock and a hard place when it comes to the Las Vegas alien incident. It's unfortunate for them, but that's where they are. They really can't really make many moves, right? I mean, they can't really talk about it. They can't really try to debunk anything that people like me, Scott Roeder, Chris Lathrop, among others, have been talking about with regard to the evidence associated with that case. They can't really say anything about it, right? What could they say? I mean, if they say anything, here's the problem that they face. If they try to debunk anything that we've put forward, right, then everyone is going to look at what we've put forward and they're going to know that they're lying. Like when you think about what happened recently with the History Channel's Proof is Out There episode, they didn't talk about a lot of different aspects to this case. I mean, they completely left out the 1 minute and 41 second long cell phone footage that was filmed by Contra Kenmore that night, around midnight on May 1st, 2023. Of course, the object came down from the sky just before midnight on April 30th. They didn't talk about that at all. They just said that the police found that the claims of aliens in the backyard were unfounded. They just left it at that. That's the best they can do. They're not going to bring in names like Scott Roeder, the crime scene reconstruction expert from Ohio, and talk about what he's been saying. If they do, then everyone's going to know what the reality of the situation is, that this case proves beyond any doubt whatsoever that we are not alone, right? There's just no question about it. So that's where they are right now. They're caught between a rock and a hard place, just like in that. It's an old famous phrase, and also if you remember, the Rolling Stones made a big song about it decades ago, "Rock and a Hard Place." But yeah, that's where they are, and they can't really do anything about it. They're stuck. They're stuck. Right? You think about this, okay? Now, of course, that incident happened in 2023, and then it wasn't until 2024. April, when we started realizing that, hey, wait a minute, this shows beyond any doubt that there's something here. And then later on that summer, I sent an email letter, big long letter. In fact, you know what? I'll leave a link to that so you can check out that letter for yourself, to the Pentagon, as well as a courtesy copy to the Department of Energy. I never received any response to that email. Basically, that email laid it all out, the evidence, Scott Roeder's findings. There were some images thrown in there. There's no question about it, right? And they never responded. And then more recently, I reached out to my local United States House representative here from the region where I live, and I provided some more information, updated information with regard to this case. And that was sent off to the UAP caucus. They never said anything about it either. Because here's why. Because they all know what it means. Everybody out there, I mean, people who have been following this podcast, right, and you've been watching some of these episodes where I've been talking about this case, you see, right? And now, of course, you'll see some comments in there, right? Who knows who these people are? Debunkers, idiots, morons, government agents, who knows, who say, oh, there's not enough evidence here. Don't listen to it. It's all just nonsense. It's all just people trying to sow seeds of doubt in your mind, okay? That's what it is. And, of course, the problem is, what are they, if they say anything, if somebody like Mick West, he turned down a $5,000 offer from Scott Roeder last year to provide an analysis that would debunk everything that Scott Roeder was putting forth. He turned it down. He claimed that he could get sued. You know, it was all nonsense. Yeah, I mean, you know what? Here's the thing. Here's the only thing I could think of when it comes to that. He thinks the only way to provide any sort of rebuttal right, to refute this, right? He thinks he's going to have all he's going to be able to do is attack the witnesses, attack the researchers, and that's all he can do. He can't debunk it. There's nothing to how could you debunk something that's real? You can't debunk this case. So that's why he didn't do it. He can't do it. Doesn't matter how much money you offer him, he won't do it. He's afraid. He knows what it means. That's why he'd rather not say anything about it. That's why, for the most part, people stay away from, like, if I talk about this on X or anywhere, or Reddit, or for Reddit, or if you try to talk about this, you try to write anything in UFO Reddit about this case, or the other subreddit aliens, it gets removed. They don't want people to know about reality. They rather have other stuff in there where you don't know, where it's up in the air, whether it's extraterrestrial, non-human intelligence or not. That's what they want. Right? Like, the only place really on Reddit, for the most part, where you can talk about the Las Vegas aliens is a subreddit called Las Vegas Aliens. Somebody set up this subreddit who sees the worth of this case and understands what it means, and that's the only place you could really talk about it, right? Without being harassed or by unknown people, right? Online. I mean, that's the only place, right? See, there's nothing they could do about it. Nobody could disprove this case. They just can't do it because they know what it means. So they're out. They're all of these people. The government, I mean, if they come out and try to say the Pentagon came out and tried to say, well, yeah, we saw your email, but we think this, and this is why it makes it not real. They can't do that, because if they did, they know I'd be like Superfly Snooker coming off the top rope, showing everybody, whoa, see, they're lying about this, and this. There's no way they can do it. There's nothing they can do. They're caught between a rock and a hard place. That's where they're at. And it goes the same with the debunkers. I mean, what are they going to do? Mick Westcat, all he could say is, this is stupid and this is ridiculous and stuff like that. He can't provide any sort of refutal. He can't refute it. He can't rebut it. There's no rebuttal here. What's he going to say? He tried to say it was he went on Inside Edition and said they probably got scared by raccoons and coyotes. Obviously, you've seen the evidence. That's not what it was. There was something extremely strange going on there, and it involved exactly what the witnesses said it involved. It involved alien creatures, non-human intelligent beings. You heard the 911 call, right? You see them on the video, right? They were cloaking, decloaking. Well, we don't know exactly how they were doing or what they were doing or why it happened, but it happened. And there's just no getting around this. Now, I have received just today, I received an email. There's actually people in the UFO community itself that walked away from this case, okay? Like George Knapp, who lives in Nevada. I mean, he's one of the, everyone knows I love George Knapp. I think he's, one of the top names in this whole UFO community. I mean, I just did a big show about him recently. But last Saturday, he was at this event called Alien Fest. He was the keynote speaker there. And somebody asked him the question about this, about the Vegas alien incident, and this is what he said.
And then they visited the family, and they claimed there were aliens and reptilians. I couldn't find any follow-ups on that story.
Okay, this is talking about an incident that happened in the Northwest Valley a couple of years ago. The reason the world knows about it is because we covered it. We get beat up in Twitter every day about, why don't you guys cover this? We did cover it, and that's why you know about it. Because we requested, my colleague David Charnes, I-Team guy, requested the body cam video from the police. We talked to the officers. Because the police had taken that incident seriously and had gone to the house to investigate and then re-investigated it, we took it seriously and we reported it. So the family had asked to speak to me, only to me, and go on camera. I went out there to see them 3 different times at appointed times, and they wouldn't open the door. So they blew me off 3 different times, and I said, that's enough for me. So we looked at other parts of their story that they had told. They had a ring camera video of a meteor going over, and it was making a really bad noise, and they intimated that was their meteor that went over. There was a big blue bolide meteor that flew over Las Vegas Valley, but it was going so high and fast, wherever it came down, it's hundreds of miles away from here. It didn't land in their backyard. They had a big mark in the sand of a circle where they say this thing landed. So I went back through Google, and that mark had been there for 2 years because they have heavy equipment in their backyard. So the video they said was theirs wasn't theirs. The meteor that they said landed in their backyard did not. The marks on the ground that they said was made by a spaceship was not. And they had stood me up 3 times. I said, I'm done with it. So I moved on. Thank you all. I'm sorry to keep you here for too long, but thanks very much.
Well, as much as I love George Knapp, right, he's wrong. He's totally wrong. He didn't do enough research into this. He needs to see what we've been talking about. This story ends the debate. There is no more debate anymore, right? What he was talking about there, that everything, all his, just the fact that they weren't answering the door, yeah, that's frustrating. And the same thing happened to the original guy who was talking about this case, Doug Papa. He's a local podcaster in Las Vegas, talks about the police all the time, right? He has his own little podcast, and he's been doing this for a while. And he was the one, if it wasn't for Doug Papa, actually, we probably wouldn't know about this case. And he got to a point, he was actually interviewing some of the witnesses like Angel. And then it got to a point where, they weren't talking to him anymore. And he apparently got frustrated. He did an episode where he said something to the effect of, I think it's a hoax now. I remember watching that episode, waiting to see where's this proof of the hoax, and it just never emerged. I think he just became frustrated, and he hasn't talked about it, didn't talk about it for a while. More recently, he's been on X, and he seems to be more supportive of it again. He should be, because he's going down in history in this. This is the biggest story of all time. If it wasn't for Doug Papa, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about this case. He's the one who brought it to light originally, right? Then other news outlets like News Nation and KLAS, TV, where George Knapp works in Vegas, they did some episodes about it. They did some segments where they talked about it. So if it wasn't for Doug Papa, we wouldn't be talking about this, because this would have been buried, right? He's the one who got wind of the report, made the phone calls, did some interviews with Angel early on, right when after this incident happened. And now he did say at some point that he thought it was a hoax, but I don't. With the evidence here, there's no way anybody could. It's not a hoax. There's just no chance. There's absolutely no way. I mean, there's just too much. There's too much. Anybody who's been paying attention, and you have to understand too. I was just talking in the most recent episode about some of these weird agents that were telling the witnesses to shut up. Not only the Kenmore family, but apparently other members of their family, that, their extended family in other parts of the world, in other parts of the country. And not just here in the United States, but apparently in Brazil and in Europe. They're getting approached by weird agents telling them not to talk about this case. That's because there's an effort out there to keep this bottled up. Obviously. And the reason why. I see a lot of questions. Some people say recently in some of the podcasts that I published, like particularly on YouTube, there's a few comments like this where someone says, I can't believe nobody's talking about this. Well, it's obvious. The reason why they're not talking about it, because it proves that we're not alone. That's why they're not talking about it. They don't want the world to know about this for some reason. And at some point, I think the people in the UFO community, like George Knapp, among others, right, they're going to have to, I think they'll come around at some point when they digest all of this, because it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, right? There's a lot to consider here, right? There really is. But once you do, it becomes very clear that this shows we're not alone, and there's something here, right? There is something with us, and there's just no going back now. But again, a rock in a hard place. What do? I mean, if you have somebody come out and try to debunk this, everything that they did, and they particularly point to the research that I've been putting on the show, the analysis that I've been providing, from people like Scott Roeder talking about what his findings were, some of the research by people like Chris Lathrop. When I lay it all out and people see that, they understand that it's real. So they can't they really can't. When you think about it, they can't. That's why you don't hear anybody else talking about it, because if they do, they know that it's going to eventually lead people back to to this, and they're going to see all of this. They're going to realize, wow, all these other people have been lying. They've been lying. Right, the debunkers and the government. The government, they're not saying anything. NASA, by the way, remember they said it was a meteor. Obviously, that's nonsense. It couldn't have been. Right, there's no way. In fact, I was speaking with investigator Chris Lathrop just earlier today. We're preparing an episode about the trajectory of the object, where from all the different film clips, all the different video clips. We're going to be talking about that in an upcoming episode, as well as the landing spot in the backyard. We're going to have an episode where we discuss that. I mean, there's just so many different things to talk about when it comes to this case. I know, and here's the thing. I know that there's a lot of my subscribers who've been following me for a while. They get sick of me talking about this case, but I have to. It needs to be talked about. It cannot be forgotten. This is the one that takes it across the finish line. There's nothing else out there that comes close. I mean, we have the object. We have it filmed from multiple different video sources. You see it coming down from the sky. There was anomalous qualities to it in quite a few of those video sources, right? There's the one where we see two objects for some reason, right? There's another one where we hear sound. There's another one where it shows no heat signature because it was filmed in long wave infrared from an Amazon robo-taxi, right? So we have all of these different videos and evidence associated just with that alone. And then we also have someone who reported to the American Meteorological Society from Arizona who said after the object went down, there were two UFOs that showed up and were hovering in the sky for about an hour in the area where it went down. What was that all about? See, there's just too much. Then there's the 911 call. There's the way the family acts in the video. You can't act like that. You can't there wasn't no performance. If it was a hoax, it would have been that they would have been performing. That's not a performance. You're seeing people reacting to alien creatures in their backyard, right? Again, there's just too much here. And then when we took a closer look at that video, you've seen what I've shown you, right? How do you explain that? There's no other explanation other than NHI were there. The witnesses said they saw them. We look at the video, how many different instances throughout that 1 minute and 41 second long little cell phone video filmed in portrait style, right? How many instances do we see creatures? I lost count. There's just too many. And some of them are undeniable. Some of them people could say, well, it might be pareidolia. Well, okay, but whatever. What about all of these other ones though? It's just, there's no way that this could be denied. This story is the real deal, and it places the control group, it places the debunkers between a rock and a hard place. There's nothing they could really do, right? There's nothing they could do. Well, what could they do? Think about it. What could they do? There's nothing they could say, because anything they do, if they say something, then that's just putting a spotlight on it, right? And then here comes the researchers who've been looking at this for a long time, and they're just going to poo-poo everything they say. They're going to show that everything that they try to say with regard to this case, they're just going to say, everyone's going to see it. They're going to say, wow, they're trying to lie to us about it. So that's why they can't do anything. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's too late. It's too late. The only thing they could have done early on, if they would have known about that 1 minute and 41 second video, because that's the key. That's the key. That part ends it right there. That video that was looked at by crime scene reconstruction expert Scott Roeder, 30 years plus experience investigating crimes, testifying in court, all the video film analysis, all of this stuff, right? Him and his team verified that the video couldn't have been faked, no CGI, nothing, right? If say for instance, Corridor Crew comes forward and tries to tell you it's a hoax, you're going to know they're lying. I've already caught them guys with some BS lies, right? Just recently. When it came to the Compton alien stuff, I did a whole show about that. So there's nothing anybody can do to wiggle out of this one. There's just no wiggle room, and I think that George Knapp, I think what got frustrated early on because the family wasn't talking to him. That's what it might be, and he just has no idea maybe he's just totally unaware of the research that's been conducted since. I mean, because if he was aware, he wouldn't be still talking like this in front of people. He just walked away from it. But hey, I love George Knapp. I'm sure that at some point he'll see all of this stuff and he'll come around and he'll realize the importance of this evidence. I am certain of it. I don't see how anybody could deny it. I sometimes I wish that someone like Stanton Friedman was still around, because he died a few years ago, and I did talk to him a few times on the phone when I was a reporter. Actually, a couple of different times when I was a reporter here in Pennsylvania in 1997. I had talked to him with regards to the 50th anniversary of the Roswell incident. And then when I was in Iowa back in 2002, I talked to him again a few times on the phone about UFO topics. He faxed me some information as well during that period. And I think that if he were around right now, he would be behind this. He would see this, the importance of this, but unfortunately he's not. There's other people, I just think they're not aware of it. Other researchers, because again, I think it's been getting suppressed. It's just until just recently, for some reason, some of the podcasts where I talked about this, they started picking up steam, particularly on YouTube. There was one I did a few months ago where it was the 2-year anniversary of the event. That podcast on YouTube now has well over 100,000 views, and now it seems like, okay, there's some people starting to see this and they're starting to recognize, wow, why isn't anybody talking about this case? because they can't. They can't. There's a cover-up going on, right? I do suspect that some people in the UFO community, some of the bigger names, they don't want people to be focused on this. They rather keep trying to get the talk about this, doing this slow disclosure bit, having the hearings in Congress and talking about UFOs and the danger they pose to aircraft and so on and so forth. They don't want to get into this kind of stuff because then you're talking about a lot of other things, right? You're talking about a lot of other things. You're talking about not just you're talking about the beings inside, and when people are going to start wondering what it's all about and all that. And then the conversation moves from there and moves to is what people like researchers like David Jacobs is that gonna what are people gonna think when they learn that there could be hybrids among us, hybrids, aliens living among us that look just like us? And what are they doing? Why are they doing it? See, there's a lot of different things that fall into this. I understand some of it, but the bottom line is it's too late. The proof is out there, not the show. The real proof, it's here now, right? The proof is out there. I'll tell you what about the proof is out there. They should call it the proof is out there. It's just not in that show, right? The proof is out there in the internet. It's all over the place now. All you got to do is look for it, and you're gonna know that there is a cover-up. It's ongoing right now. There's most certainly no question in my mind that this case has been getting suppressed for a long time. It's the biggest story of all time. They don't know how the world's going to react. There's a lot of fear going on behind the scenes. Obviously, there has to be, right? There has to be. It's probably going to continue like this for a while. I don't know how long, until more and more people discover this truth. The more and more people learn about what happened in Las Vegas in 2023. Over time, right? Over time, more and more people are going to be alerted to this, and they're going to realize, they're going to absorb the evidence, and they're going to realize, okay, we've been getting lied to. Whatever the government's reasons are, you could speculate all till the cows come home. What does it matter, right? We've been getting lied to. There is something here among us. There are people continually, actively, right now, continuing to lie about this. The debunkers, no question about it. So I think some of them know. I think some of them, I don't know if some of them are government employees or not. That's a question for another day. What does it matter? We're being lied to, right? And here the evidence is very clear at this point. And I think, unfortunately for the government, the secret control group, for the debunkers, as well as some people in the UFO community who are interested in a slow disclosure, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. They can't really talk about this other than, poo-poo it without providing any sort of analysis. They can't. If they did, then that would be easily shown that they don't know what they're talking about, right? I mean, if George Knapp would have researched this case, he would not have made that very quick, vague statement. And now, that's no, that means nothing. I mean, you see. I laid it all out here. I mean, the research is solid. I mean, I was a reporter for 14 years, something like that. Right? I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't really believe that it was real, because it is real, right? I wouldn't be sitting here, and I don't do that. If there's something that I'm sure about, I always point it out. If there's something I'm not 100%. For instance, the Compton alien, I'm not 100% on that one. I point it out. You have to. If something's wrong, and you make a mistake, right? Say you're mistaken about something. You got to come back and say, look, I made a mistake. I was wrong, right? There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's not weak. It's strong. When you're capable of pointing out that you've made a mistake, right? That's strength. That shows strength. When you don't, you come off as a liar. You come off as obtuse, right? You come off as someone you can't trust and someone who's weak, right? That's the bottom line. For instance, I remember, I talked at one time on the show about the Trinity UFO incident from 1945. And after I did it, because it was a believable story. Jacques Vallée did this book about it along with Paula Harris. And so I was talking about it on the show one time. And then I was contacted afterward by someone from MUFON who indicated that the story was, you better look at the research of Douglas Dean Johnson. He's somewhat of a skeptic, but he does good research, and he did some good research into this alleged Trinity UFO crash from 1945. And after reviewing all of that evidence that he put forward, obviously that case had more holes in it than a block of Swiss cheese, right? So I had to come back on and do a show saying, yeah, obviously this was debunked successfully. See, but that hasn't happened with the Vegas case, and guess what? It's not going to happen. It can't happen because it did happen. That's why. And all these people who are trying to tell everyone else that there's no evidence that there's aliens here or non-human intelligent presence, all of these people, right? They're lying. And so what happens here? They can't say anything about it because if they do, then it just puts more attention, puts the spotlight on it, and then people might find this podcast and they'll see what kind of stuff I've been putting out there, and that informs them. So that's why they have to stay quiet about it. That's the only way. And if they do talk about it, they do so like proof is out there style, where they just, they don't include all of the data with it, and they just fool people that way. That's a great trick by debunkers. Stan Friedman talked about that all the time. If there's something that doesn't jibe with their hypothesis, then they just don't tell you about it, right? And that's what the proof is out there did. In fact, they left about 95% of the story out, right? And that's how they try to trick their audience. And they just said nothing about Scott Roeder's research or analysis. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They said nothing about the 1 minute and 41 second long cell phone footage. Nothing, right? You leave all of that out, right? That's how you trick people. That's what's going on, folks. I just wanted to point that all out to you today. Anyway, I just want to say this. Thanks a lot for joining me. Until next time.